Hello, welcome to Life with Coyote Farm. Today's story is about the final frontier, namely Africa, the continent with so much potential that we're all so proud of. Africa is typically regarded as the final frontier from two perspectives. The first is its transition from a frontier market to a true emerging market that has gathered pace in recent years. The second is its fast emergence as the final destination hub for global investment and capital flows. So Africa is rising. Some would say slowly. But if her potential and the dream of the African Renaissance is to be fully realized, we have to know and understand our history and past, so that some of the experiences and problems that have held us back for so long don't repeat themselves going forward. Part of Africa's great history and backstory includes the slave trade. With this in mind, I took a trip to Goree Island in Senegal.
We're visiting some wonderful places here in Senegal, and we're heading to Goree Island on a beautiful sunny day.
And this is a boat that goes to Casamance, south of Senegal.
We're about to leave the key right now. We've seen a lot of boats. Some of these boats go out to Casamance. We're really excited. Blue skies, and it couldn't get better. I'm really excited. I've never been to Goree before. Heard a lot about it, a lot of history. It really captures a lot of what is truly Senegal, and it's an iconic place, and there's no way we can come to Dakar and not visit it. So I'm really excited to be heading there right now. So let's see what Goree Island has in store. Here we are in Goree. We just arrived, and it's a really exciting time. I can't wait to get onto the island. The island looks absolutely beautiful. I know everybody's really excited, as excited as I am. Even got some kids swimming in the water. See them. Beautiful. Here we go.
So, brothers and sisters, welcome to the House of Slaves. The famous House of Slaves of Goree Island. And this House of Slaves have been built in 1776. So that is why the slave house was one of the latest to be built on the island of Goree, because the first dated from 1536, built by the Portuguese. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to have set foot in Goree Island in 1444. And during the full period of slavery in this small house, one can find the big family, mother, father, and the children, living separately in different cells according sex or age. But the duration of the stay for slaves was very long, of because 3 months and more, since by the time they get only sailing boats as mean of transportation. And usually captives are left of slave houses with registration number rarely with their African names. So that is why when they arrived in the plantations in Americas, they took the names of the owners. So that's why usually black people in US had Anglo-Saxon names. Brazil, Portuguese names, Cuba, Spanish names, AD or West Indies, French names. And also, since they separate men, women, and children, that is why inside one can see cells located on right and left downstairs, which was a form of cell reserved for only men. But this one in the front is a typical cell for men. So would you come with me? And in this very small cell, so the cell is 2 meters 60 by 2 meters 60, but inside 15 to 20 men. So they were sitting down all along the wall, back against the wall, shackles in the neck and the arms. And they freed them once a day. It was just in order to permit them to go outside for release themselves. Most of the time they lived inside in so bad sanitation conditions that the first plague epidemic that ravaged the entire island of Goree in 1779 took place from a house like this. But also today most of the houses surrounding the island of Goree were former slave houses. And during the slave trade in slave houses, usually traders have had sex with virgin girls. But once a girl was pregnant, they freed her here in Goree Island or in Saint Louis But Saint-Louis was the former capital of Senegal, located on the northern part of the country. So that is why in 1815, after the Vienna Congress, when Goree and Saint-Louis was given back to France, most of the mulattoes became French citizenship. So also during a very long time, this island was between rivalries of European nations, battling to control the Rabo. So that is why the first Europeans to come to Goree Island were the Portuguese, and then the Dutch, and the French, and the British, and the French again. And after the abolition of the slave trade by France in 1848, decolonization replaced slavery and the slave trade. So that is why finally the French stayed in Goree Island until 1960, date of the independence of Senegal. Now let's continue outside. So just to go to the next, very close, and it corresponds to the former cell reserved for kids, children from 6 years old until 17, but also a very small cell, as you can see, with a corridor leading to the bottom. But children usually lay down on the floor, like fishes on sardine boxes, and we have noticed that inside corresponds to the highest death rate. Okay, what is also possible to see is the windows. Would you come with me? Watch your head and remind the step. So we have windows everywhere. But also the purpose of the windows was first to destroy the privacy and secondly to prevent escape. We have also to have in mind that finally slave houses constitute the starting point of the destruction of the African family structure. Just because the destination of the slaves was depending on the buyers. So that is why usually father could be sent to Louisiana, mother to Brazil, children to Haiti. So the separation was total. So let's move and go outside together. So don't forget your head.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, but the next corresponds to the famous cell reserved for the young girls, reserved particularly for virgins, just because they separate women with young girls. And the thing was from the African custom during the slave trade. They reserved specifically standing breasts for virgin girls. But also virgin girls finally were more privileged than the other slaves because they were very expensive. For example, they don't have to go outside for release themselves. That's why today one can see downstairs this big stone or pavement. We show the former place reserved for the toilet. And for that time it was a kind of privilege. And also the bargaining was a kind of barter, but in terms of barter. The price of a child was something like a little mirror. And the price of a man was of 60 kg, but 60 kg corresponds to the minimum wage required for a man. That's why the price of a man was of 60 kg was exactly the same with the price of a virgin girl. It corresponds to a barrel of rum or wine. But the price of a woman was 4 times cheaper than the price of a man who was of 60 kg or a virgin girl. And then let's move to the next, which corresponds to the former cell reserved for temporarily unfit, reserved for men under 60 kg. Because a 60 kg or kilogram was the minimum weight required for a man, that is why for most of them who don't reach 60 kg, usually they put them inside the cell in order to feed them, like geese. But they feed them with a kind of beans, so-called, particularly in Senegal, niébé. And after 3 months, but 3 months corresponds to the duration of the stay for slaves, because usually it was a time taken by boats to come from Europe to Senegal. But if they don't reach 60 kg, they did not go to Americas. They sold them locally in auction, and they stay here as domestic slaves, particularly on this island or in Saint-Louis of Senegal. But also under the stairs was where they put the rebellious slaves. And they use it as a punishment for slaves. No window, just an iron door with bars. And the problem for the guards was not to know exactly how many captives it was possible to put inside in the same time. It was just how to shut the door after the captives, because usually they consider captives not as human beings, but as a simple merchandise. And by this way, also correspond to the same of because also reserved for rebellious slaves. And the big difference is that we have two windows located on right and left. But something very new. The two windows we have today was from the abolition of the slave trade. It was after 1848, but 1848 was a date when the French abolished definitely the slave trade in France, in the French colonized. But as a reminder, for England, it was in 1807. Now, the last but not least is a corridor with a door leading to the bottom. And it is a door of the voyage without return. Of because when a slave steps out from the door, for the slave, it seems bye-bye Africa. And after the door was a kind of wooden bridge. But usually captives use the wooden bridge just in order to catch small canoes from the bridge of because of rocks to go to the big ships who was far away. Also, that is why one can see two first corridors located on right and left, where they kept the slaves before the departure. But in the last two corridors, usually was standing the guards. And they choose guards among slaves. So once they go, they change them from the uncles 2 by 2. And also in the middle of the chain was attached a very big iron ball, about 10 kilograms, 300 grams. And that is why when a slave attempts to escape by jumping, for example, he can go far away. Of because he died by diving, or beaten by the guards, or eaten by the sharks. Due to the people who were sick or agonizing were thrown into the sea. So would you stand here? Maybe have your picture from the door of no return? Why not? Because finally, this door symbolizes the black deportation. Yes. From here?
From here to America.
No. America, this is west, east.
East.
America is located in the west. Yeah.
But nope, we're not coming back.
No. Going around Goree Island and then straight to America.
So this is the point of no return.
Yes, so this is the door of no return of because when a slave step out from this door, for him it was bye-bye Africa. It seems definitely bye-bye Africa.
From here, and then they take them to the Americas, to Brazil, all over the world.
Yes, this is the east position. So that's why go around Goree Island and then straight to America.
Okay, you've heard from Mr. Coley. You've heard about our history. This was a point of no return. From here, the slaves went, never came back again. Slavery has ended, but his mental slavery ended. And I think that's what we've got to think about, and that's what we've got to deal with right now. We've got to free our minds as Africans, and we've got to make sure that the lives that were lost here, the torture, the suffering, were not in vain. We owe it to ourselves. Our leadership is still wanting, African leadership is still wanting globally, but we can make that change today. Let's do this. Let's change Africa, let's change ourselves. Don't let what happened here be in vain. Let's reflect, and let's be proud of who we are. One Africa, okay? One people, one free mind, and one leadership. Let's do it. Okay.